going on, man?
Here we go.
What's poppin'?
What's up? What's up?
Appreciate you having me, for real.
No, I appreciate you, man. This means a lot. This means a lot. I know a lot of people was DMing me, pretty excited to have this going. So I think it's gonna be a good conversation.
Absolutely.
All right, so we can go ahead and get started, and as people twinkle in, we can kind of, ask questions if there's anything that pops up. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Quick intro on the purpose of this live. It's called the Stand-Up. Doing a regular 9 to 5, the workday. A stand-up within that sense typically means, you go there in the morning, you talk about what you worked on the day before. You talk about what you're currently going to be working on as of today. And you talk about any blockers. So what are the things that you might be experiencing that's kind of limit or kind of slow down your progress to getting things done for that specific day.
Right.
And for this stand-up, it's kind of similar. We talk about what we've done before tech. So what our career was, what our interest was. We talk about what we're doing currently. So our positions, what a day-to-day looks like. And then lastly, we talk about some of the blockers that we face on a day-to-day basis. So that's just the whole idea behind the stand-up.
I like that. That's a nice spin on that. I like that. I didn't understand what the stand-up came from at first, but okay, you tie that in. I like that.
Yeah. It has to break it down some way, somehow. But yeah, 3 things. And I mean, I know I gave you a heads up. These conversations can get long-winded. I think the longest one was 3 hours. We could try not to make it happen this time.
Yeah, I got this room until about 8 o'clock. So
yeah, we're definitely not gonna make it happen this time, but we gotta enjoy ourselves quite a bit. Got a few questions I definitely want to ask you, and if there's anything on your end that you want to ask me,
okay,
to pitch away.
Sure.
Yeah, let's get started with the first one. So I can go ahead and kick it off, get the ball rolling. So before is what I'm gonna head and talk about. So before becoming a software developer, Trey. Hold on, before you even start, just give a warm intro, but don't get too deep into it. Just give a warm intro.
Okay. All right, I'll try to give the bare minimum. All right, so my name is Trey. I'm a developer, specifically Flutter developer. So I make mobile applications for iOS and Android. I've been doing this for about, I feel like it's going too deep. All right, I'm a developer, currently in Ohio, and just trying to become more immersed in the whole world of tech, learning more and just gaining knowledge every day. So I think I can keep it there for now.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Cool. All right, myself, Victor Osuyek. I am a software developer, a lead front-end developer for a startup. Beforehand, I worked for a medium-sized startup that raised a Series D and later became unicorn status. And before that, I actually now get too deep until you see how it works.
It's hard. That's why it's hard. Get too deep.
So let's go ahead and get too deep. We're already here. So before tech, tell us about your background. What were you doing? What made you interested in tech?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what got me into tech, and I always say this, but when I was growing up, my mother was a web developer or web designer, I should say. And so I remember being like a little kid, I'm on my computer playing video games, like right next to me, she's on her computer making websites for people or designing them. And so back then I didn't understand what she was doing. I just knew that she was able to make a product without leaving the house and, had clientele in and out on the daily. And so I saw that dynamic. And then my father, he worked at like GM. So his idea of work was I had to leave the house and go work somewhere for 10 hours. But hers was like, I'm doing the same type of work as far as like commitment to something, but I never leave the house. So I think from an early age on, I was interested in computers because I knew that there was some type of ease that came with the fact that you could still be applying yourself and working without having to overexert yourself. It's more mental. So as I got older, I started just messing with different softwares like Photoshop and Illustrator. And I always thought those softwares were interesting because it's like, okay, I can edit pictures. I was making flyers for people in college and little designs of myself and stuff like that. So by the time I got to college, I was like, let me go ahead and try computer science out. And I really took a gamble. I didn't even go in there thinking I was going to be a computer science major, but it just fit. And after my first programming class, I fell in love and I was like, all right, I'm in the right spot. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's kind of how I got into tech. And then I've been doing this for about 7 years now and still growing, still gaining traction. And just that's my pace right now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you definitely had the privilege of seeing, your mom go to work as a web developer. You've seen that code, that first IDE. I'm pretty sure when you first seen it, you had a lot of questions, and it's a sense of privilege to be able to ask the person who's building the things these questions, and that person being your mom right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I was really young, so I don't even think I was asking the right questions. I was just like, Mom, what's that? And she's like, I'm designing a website for somebody, baby. Go play the game or whatever, But like I said, from an early age on, I was like, that's interesting. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I don't know how far-fetched this is, but fast forward to your career now. Have you ever decided to look back into that code that your mom was working on?
Nah, not really. Because honestly, she only did that. I don't have like an exact time frame, but I say by the time I was in 6th grade, she wasn't doing that anymore. I was real little, you know what I'm saying? Probably like kindergarten type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time I was like 6th grade, 5th grade, she was already done doing that. So I couldn't even go back and look at it anyways. That's long gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's pretty dope, man. Yeah, I think for my end, what introduced me to tech. I know you mentioned your mom was like a big influence, her being a web developer, and then like the hard work, the ethic, being able to build, I think might have also stemmed from your dad. He's one of those guys that I can imagine was like going outside and building, creating. And then you found a purpose as well where you can build yourself, but you can do so, on a computer. But for me personally, I think on my end, just to answer the before tech, I always been like an athlete, playing all different type of sports. But when it came down to what I wanted to do for a career, I was always interested in architecture.
Okay.
So I actually went to school for architecture, and I was pursuing that degree for a good 4 months. And then after that first semester, I'm like, yeah, this probably isn't it for me. But I still enjoyed the idea of being able to design and to architect something.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I can architect software. So it was one of those things where I sat down with my counselor, asked the right questions, try to discover what can I do to mix architecture, tech, and design. And there was a few things that was in place, and one of it was software development.
Okay.
So I think for me, definitely a big shout out to Miss Sanchez, who was my advisor back in junior college, who helped me kind of guide and determine what I want to do for my career.
So you went from architecture to software development, right?
Yep.
So what was the major? Obviously you switched majors in?
Yeah, switched majors. So I went to junior college beforehand.
Okay.
So junior college, got my gen ed out the way, and from there I went to a uni.
Okay.
And the uni's right. I chose a specific major, but as I was in junior college, that major was in fact architecture.
Got it.
But when I went to university, I went to ISU, and I went there with a major in graphic communication. So it's pretty broad. There's 2 different paths you can go from.
Yeah.
There's either graphic communication like Photoshop, Illustrator, or there's the technical part, which is Java, SQL, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and that's the path I decided to take. And it's one of those creative paths where you don't necessarily have to get into the deep data structures and algorithms.
Yeah.
They teach you the basics, and then it's up to you to kind of run with it, which is pretty cool because I didn't have to, stress out too much. But
yeah, that's usually what keeps a lot of people out of tech is it's like that first programming class, and they're like, "Oh, this is way too complicated."
Yeah.
It's like someone trying to learn Spanish the first day. You're like, "This is pointless. I'm not going to get it." But it's one of the things like you just apply yourself and give the same type of commitment to it that you would anything else, and you pick up easy on it. So
yeah,
you made a good switch though. I'm glad you switched over. That was a good idea.
Yeah, big facts. Yeah, I mean, even back then, what was it, 2014? 2014? Yeah, I understand there was a shift going on with how careers were going, and being in tech, anything tech related was a must at that time. So
yeah,
definitely happy I did so.
Hey, tech money's too good, man.
Yeah, that's a fact. Especially when, and we can get into that if you want, but especially when you pick a certain niche within the software development space. So I'm an Angular developer, right? You're a Flutter developer.
Yeah. I used to do a little bit of Angular. My first job out of college, I was doing Angular. So yeah. I haven't touched it in a while though, so it's been a minute, but I remember Angular. That was solid.
What version were you dealing with? Was it like the AngularJS or was it
This,
two
yeah,
plus?
JS. This was JS. Yeah. So this was before it got really robust. But I just remember like that being like the first like real web development framework I ever touched. 'Cause I never touched React or anything like that. So Angular's just kind of been like, that was my bread and butter for like a good year and a half.
Yeah. My first ever internship was Angular 2 plus, not the older version.
Yeah.
And from there, I've just been working on Angular since then. So I haven't touched React like that. I haven't touched Vue, any other framework. I've just been solely front end developer, trying to become an expert within that specific framework. And that's what I was kind of mentioning. Like when you become an expert in a certain framework and you kind of coin that niche,
Yeah.
if it's a Flutter developer, if it's in my end, an Angular developer, the market kind of works in your favor.
Absolutely. That's kind of why like once I picked up Flutter back in like 2018, I think, I was like, I don't really see a point of picking up anything else. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people said you should check out, React Native and Ionic and all this stuff for like mobile development, but Flutter was just, it did everything I needed it to do. And so I was like, and it was early. I was like, oh, this might be something in a couple years. So I just been sticking with that, man. Like you said, once you find that niche and just run with it, it'll take off. So
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand. So I used to work at Verizon. That was my first full-time job. And I was there as a UI developer, just a junior at the time.
yeah,
And we were having people that were working as a software developer for the past 20 years. And they were working on the same exact programming language. And it's just like, why exactly would they want to do so? And it's because the benefits on the back end, the benefits can be higher pay, more job security, right?
yeah,
And then I kind of like picked up that ideology and determined that that's probably gonna be the best bet for me too.
right.
Just kind of gravitating towards that.
That's what's up, man. You worked at Verizon. That's big.
Yeah, man. I worked on some pretty exciting projects. I can say now, before I wasn't able to. Off the 5G network space, when you sell into enterprise customers, if it's Verizon to competitors, which
Yeah,
was something that we did a lot, or if it was Verizon to IBM, whatever the case is. When we're selling 5G to somebody, somebody has to take the order. Somebody has to understand what zip codes support 5G. And I was the person that was building out the mapping system and UI for it. So yeah, it was pretty exciting.
that's what's up, man.
Yeah. But most of the interviews that I do on here to stand up, a lot of boot camp graduates. So now I have somebody that went to school for it, computer science, right? And from there, started their career. So what's your thoughts about going to school for computer science?
Hey, man, that's a great question, man. So I'm gonna be straight up with you. As far as tech is concerned, I don't think that school is necessary. I don't think like I don't think you have to go that route to be a successful developer. I'll say it that way. I think with so many ways to learn coding at this point, like you mentioned, boot camps, or even YouTube. Like YouTube really is like the new global university. When I learned Flutter, it was straight from YouTube. So I think just by me being able to learn that framework without having to be in a classroom, I became a big advocate for learning whatever you want to learn outside of like a school system. So now don't get me wrong, it helps because obviously you kind of learn things that like architecture or the logic that goes into computer science, but it's not necessary because you can pick up those same skills a bunch of different ways. So I won't say I regret going to school, but if I had to give advice to someone else, I would say it's not necessary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that went to school may hate me when I say that because they're like, nah, man, you gotta go to school to learn this stuff. But it's just like, bro, like I learned Flutter off YouTube, straight up. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know I work with a lot of people who learn Flutter off YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, I was out of school when I learned Flutter. So I would have no reason but to advocate for learning these skill sets outside of the classroom.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you at a certain extent, right? Because
Here come the pushback.
you wouldn't learn Flutter in school. They're not gonna teach you frameworks. They don't teach you libraries.
Right.
That's one of the things about going to college for trying to become a software developer. They don't teach the frameworks, the libraries, because they understand that things do come and go. So the last thing a university would want to do was to teach you Vue.js, just for Vue.js to be deprecated and no longer used by anybody in
Right.
2024. So they
Exactly.
just teach you the basics, and it's up to you to kind of run with it. And I think that's exactly what you did with like YouTube and understanding exactly what Flutter does and the benefits of it. So
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because like when I was in school, we were learning C++,
yeah,
and that's a confusing language. To this day, I still don't understand pointers and stuff like that. But I've never touched C++ outside of that class. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like back then they thought that that was the end framework, and now we're on to something totally different. I remember I took an Android class, and now I don't even use Android directly. You know what I'm saying? And even with Android, they're using Kotlin now. They're not using Java. So it's like you said, industry's always changing and it's very rapid. So it's kind of like whatever you're learning in school, it's most likely not going to be around by the time you need to apply those skill sets for a job anyways. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. So if you don't mind, let's break it down also, because I'm a web developer.
Okay.
You are a mobile developer, would you say?
Yeah, yeah. Mobile application development. Yeah.
So for me, web developer, I know that there's frameworks, there's libraries, React and Angular. But for mobile development, there's React into React Native. You have to use React, right?
Yeah.
There's native script, and for native script, you have to use Angular or Ionic. But with Flutter, what exactly do you need to use for Flutter? Is there something like not Java related, or is it like Dart? What exactly is the relationship?
Yeah. So Flutter uses the Dart programming language. And so that is it's a programming language. I believe it was developed by Google, if I'm not mistaken. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but it essentially compiles the JavaScript, and that's really what like Flutter is built on. It's not too many components to it. It's very simple, and the ease of Flutter is the fact that it offers like a very high development rate because of hot reload features and things like that. So usually when you were developing an app back in the day, it was like you had to wait for it to build and compile and all that. And you make one change on your code, you got to rebuild the whole thing. So like when you develop in iOS, when you're working with Swift, it could take days to do something, or Java with Android. But with Flutter, it's real simple to pick up, and it's just like you make a change, hot reload, and then you can kind of keep your development process easy and simple like that. So I know that probably didn't answer the question directly because there really isn't too much to Flutter. It's really out of the box simple. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people pick it up and they get right into it.
So with Flutter, is Flutter the Angular to TypeScript, or is Dart TypeScript to Angular, but instead of it being Angular, is it for Flutter? So is Flutter just a framework, and then Dart is a programming language?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes. Exactly.
yeah, I see. And then how would you rank the difficulty level to learn Flutter? Is this something someone can learn within a couple months, or what do you
Yeah.
think?
So it really depends on how in depth you want to use Flutter. Um, I think the interesting thing about Flutter is it's simple enough for like the average person to pick it up, and it's complex enough for the most skilled developer to find new things to work with. So it's like a broad range of difficulty, right? And if you want to just pick it up to make like a very simple app, you can do that within maybe like 1 month of learning Flutter, if that. It's really not hard to do that. But then a lot of big companies are using it on like an enterprise level, like Google Ads, BMW.
Mhm.
Uh, there's like some like I think I don't want to say DoorDash, but one of those like fast food delivery apps, they use Flutter as well. And so you can see already like the difference in how people are using these apps. It just depends on how in depth you want to use it and what you actually need it for. But to answer your question, you can pick it up very quickly within less than a month as long as you just apply the skill and learn it how you need to.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and that answer can vary with different frameworks or programming languages. Python, people say you can learn it within a few months, at max 2 to 3 months. With, Java, they would say it probably takes a good half a year, 6 months to kind of learn it.
Yeah.
And then with regards to like what I do, web development, people would say Angular takes a longer period of time to learn versus React because React is a little bit more out of the box kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never really understood how long it takes to learn mobile development. And maybe I got to branch out a little bit more, right? And the reason being because I don't know how was Thanksgiving for you, but whenever I'm with family and somebody has a cool little idea that comes into place, hey, I got this mobile app idea. Can you go ahead and build it for me? And I got to break the news, like I don't do mobile app development. I'm only web development. So.
Right. I get the same thing. A lot of people, they see me making apps, they're like, I got an idea. And it's usually like, this is the delivery version of such and such. So a delivery for coffee or a delivery for hair products. It's usually just like, it's kind of like an Uber, whatever idea that they have. So it's just like, when you come up with an app idea these days, it's kind of got to be something that's going to break the industry. You know what I'm saying? No slight to people that have these ideas, but that's people's first idea is, I'm going to make an Uber version of this. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, man, like another thing I want to say about Flutter is it's kind of like Legos when it comes to development. So you know how, like, I don't know if you ever played with Legos as a kid, but essentially when you're playing with Legos, you build this piece and then you can come back a day later and take that same piece and plug it into another piece and just keep building off of that until you have a spaceship or whatever. And that's kind of how Flutter works. It's like everything is a widget, so to speak. So build your own components, and those components are reusable into another component. And there's people out there who develop their own components. So it's a huge ecosystem of people just building all these Lego pieces essentially and just combining them all together. So that's why it's so easy to pick up, because you don't have to do a lot of things from scratch. If you need some type of app, or let me not say app, if you need a widget for your app, there's probably someone out there who's already spun the wheel, and you can just take what you got, add on to it for your app. So that's why the learning curve isn't too hard with Flutter.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I was smiling to that because you can definitely tell that Flutter was in fact built by Google, right? And me being an Angular developer, we all know that Angular is also developed by Google because it's the same idea behind it.
Yeah.
Create components to create larger pages.
Yeah.
These components to create larger modules, etc.
Yeah.
But you mentioned one thing that I wasn't as familiar with. I know with Angular, with what I do, you have components, but you build the components yourself. You don't necessarily like consume a different package as often. So with Flutter, you're saying that there's different components that you do consume from like the open source community?
Yeah. So like I said, the concept of Flutter that is kind of hard to imagine, but just imagine everything in Flutter is a widget. So the text that you would use to display your name is a widget, or the button that you click to go to another page, that's a widget. So everything is broken down to the smallest components. And so there's a widget out there already by default that Flutter provides. They provide a lot of things by default: buttons, text, images, scaffolds, just a lot of things like that, right? But then on top of that, let's say that you needed a widget you wanted like a 5-star rating feature for your app. You can go online and find that widget already created and plug it right into your app. So instead of having to develop this widget yourself, the ecosystem has already made that same widget. And so that's kind of what makes the ease of all of it. It's like you consume all these widgets from wherever you need, and then you can build on top of it how you need to use it. And then you can share with the ecosystem as well. It's just,
Oh, wow.
It's wild, but it's a huge benefit because you don't have to spin your wheel a long time trying to make anything for your app. There's 9 times out of 10, someone has already used that same concept and made it for their app, and you can just use it for yours.
Cool. Okay. Now that definitely makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And I think my only question to that is there cases in which Flutter apps, if it's Flutter app A versus Flutter app B, that they all kind of look alike?
It just depends. I mean, I wouldn't say that really, because people configure their apps in such a specific way to where they can still look different. Now, if you have a very bare minimum Flutter app, then yes, it's going to look like a lot of other Flutter apps, because a lot of the widgets that are provided by Flutter already, if you go with those just by default and you make any modifications, it'll start to look like a lot of other Flutter apps out there. But big companies, like I'm going to throw BMW out there again, they're using Flutter widgets in a way that they modify it, the color, the shape, the sizes, the animations, in such a way that it no longer looks like a default Flutter app. It looks like a native iOS app or a native Android app. So you can configure these widgets down to like the smallest pixel into ways that you probably couldn't do just using a normal widget. Like out of the box, if you just take it out of the box, it doesn't look, it's going to look very similar to other things already. But these companies are taking these widgets, modifying them in ways that other companies have no idea about, and voila, you have a totally different looking app that you would never even think. You have to really think, like, are they using Flutter, or what are they using? You can't really tell. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I know with, as an Angular developer, one of the things that I consume is Material. I'm not sure if you heard of Material.
Material design.
Yeah. Material.
Yeah, that's what Flutter uses as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, because what we would do, like as a UI developer, you give me the style, you give me the Figma, you give me the task in order to kind of get the job done. And I just look at that design and I go back to the material library to determine, okay, this tab looks suitable. I consume the tab. It's just a matter of me being able to customize it to fit our theme, our branding. Is that kind of like the same thing with these widgets?
Yeah, exactly. And I want to also mention, like, so Flutter allows you can use the default Flutter widgets, and those are a lot of material-based designs. But let's say I wanted my app to look like an iOS app. I wanted a native iOS date picker, or I wanted how the iOS buttons look a little different from Android buttons. Flutter provides these specific widgets for you. So if you wanted your entire iOS app to look like an iOS app, you can do that using the default Flutter widgets. Or you can also have your app set up to detect which device you're on and determine what design you want. So let's say I made an app for myself. I can do iOS apps that look like iOS apps, and then Android apps that look like Android apps, just based on detecting which device I'm currently on. So that's why I go back to my previous point, where it's kind of hard to tell is this app made by Flutter. Once you really get into like the meat and potatoes, you can't really tell what it's using, because there's so many different components that you can use and tailor them to what you actually need, to where to the naked eye, you're like, man, it's a good app. I don't know what it's using, but it's a good app. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm 100% understand now. So I could have downloaded, I got several apps on my phone. I could have downloaded a phone app that is from the Apple Store, but was built on Flutter. Or I could have downloaded an app if I had my Android, like I did back in the day, that I downloaded from the Google Play Store that looks like it's an Android theme app, but it was actually built on Flutter.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So yeah, let me ask you this question also. What would you say? Like, let's do a versus battle, right? Versus back in the pandemic was a big deal. You had all these artists competing with each other. So what would you say, like Flutter versus Android developers? What are the pros and cons?
Well, I mean, the biggest pro with Flutter is you're going to save time, because, well, if you're trying to make an application for both devices, and let me not just say both devices, because Flutter has now expanded to a bunch of different platforms. You can make iOS apps, Android apps, web apps, desktop apps, like all from one single code base, right? So instead of having to write these individual apps, instead of having to write 4 different apps, you can make 4 apps using one code base. So I think the first pro of a Flutter developer would be time and resources. Another thing compared to Flutter Android is, I don't know how big the Android ecosystem is, because I never really got too heavy into it, but the Flutter ecosystem is very massive. You know what I mean? As far as how many people are using it on the daily and how much contribution is going into Flutter. You know what I mean? Every day, people are uploading their own components and widgets and things like that. I don't know if they're doing that necessarily in the Android world, and I don't know if that's how Android even works. So if I had to say 2 benefits or pros, I would say that it's time and resources that you're saving with Flutter, and then the ecosystem that's supporting it. And then also the hot reload and hot restart. Those features save a lot of time as well. Because with Android, if I'm not mistaken, when you're building the app, like I said, you make a change, you got to rebuild the app all over again. You can imagine how long that takes. If you got the Figma design and you got to restart the view every time you change the pixel to the left, you would be like, man, this is taking forever. You know what I mean? But with Flutter, it's very quickly. It doesn't take long to get these UI screens mapped out to however you want them to look. You know what I mean? So time and resources, speed and the ecosystem behind Flutter is what makes it beneficial over other platforms.
And one of the key words you mentioned was resources. And I know exactly what you mean by that, but I think we can definitely break it down into a little bit more detail. Because when I hear resources, I hear of, we have this cool app. Let's say we have a startup, right? It's IG 2.0.
Yeah.
We have this cool startup. We have to put it on the Google Play Store. We have to put it on the iOS Store. In order to do so, back in the day, if you're not using Flutter, is you have to have an iOS developer, and then you have to have an Android developer.
Yep.
And you might be paying that iOS developer $180, maybe even $220 if you were to join back when the software development market was even hot. But you can still get $180, and then you have the Android developer that you're paying $150.
Right.
So now you got two resources that's building out the same exact mobile application.
Yep.
And now you're saying, okay, mobile apps is cool, but we have like another sector of users who don't use mobile apps as much, right? It might be a different region. You're outside of the States. If you're in Nigeria, a lot of people use laptops versus, using their mobile apps. So now we get a web developer, and we got to pay that web developer $140, right? So we're just spending a lot of money on, in this case, 3 resources: iOS, Android, web developer.
And not to cut you off, but to go along with that, while you're having all these different developers, it's harder to map any inconsistencies you have, right? Because let's say the iOS developer, he might have put in a feature that the Android and web developer didn't know about, and now the product's out, and now you're like, dang, Android developer's like, I don't have that feature yet.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so like, you have to literally make sure all your apps are on the same page if you have these different developers. But with Flutter, since it's one code base, you don't have to worry about that problem. Every time that you push a build out to the App Store, it's always going to be consistent with every platform that it's on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I know firsthand, I've witnessed it, but I also understand the importance of having to slim down those resources. Because like I mentioned, iOS, Android, web, and then it gets to a point now you're pushing out those features. If it's consistent, the UI is consistent. You don't got to worry about a button, looking X-ray versus how it looks like in a different device.
Right.
And the biggest part with these organizations, you get to save money. Right. I probably just listed out at least $400,000 worth of salary between the 3 developers.
Yeah.
But if you can cut that in half, pay that Flutter developer $200K, it sounds like a win.
It's a win. It's an easy win. Real quick, is that ticket noise? Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm in this room. They got 2 3D printers going right now, and I didn't know if you could hear it or not. But we good. Don't worry about it.
I'll be all good. Yeah. Let us know in the comments section if you guys have any questions at all. I know we're talking a lot of technical talk. We got Trey in the building. He's just dropping all these gems. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop it in the comment section. But yeah, the reason why I know a little bit about Flutter, like the Dart and the whole entire, Google owning it as an organization, was because I was curious to kind of start branching out at one point and understanding different programming languages or frameworks.
Yeah.
And I'm just a huge Google fan. Like Flutter was the first choice for me.
Right.
But I put a pause on that and I started learning Golang.
Okay. That's a very popular language though. What do they use that for though? Like they use it at my old job. It's like for like the back end directly, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Or is it kind of like C# as far as like used for like API requests to the database, or what do you use Golang for directly?
Yeah, it's mainly for, you can use it for all types of things, to be honest. So Golang as a language, built by Google back in 2007 or 2009, one of the two, it became this thing that a lot of companies like Docker started to utilize. So Docker is 100% Golang.
Yeah.
It's used because it's fast, it's efficient, and it's easy to learn. And it takes very, very small amount of code to get things done. REST APIs is a great example, but if you're building out like a whole entire orchestration like Docker or Kubernetes, it's also Golang. It's a great use case scenario. So I would say it's definitely like infrastructure code. You probably don't want to build out Kubernetes with Java because you might have some latency problems. It takes too long to load and all that good stuff. But with Golang, it uses concurrency, so things can happen within the same amount of time. You save a lot more time with regards to the load and performance, and that's why it's used like a server-side programming language for uh, orchestration, basically.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. I was always curious because at my old job, it was a startup and they used Golang, but it was like the back end developers use it a lot. So I would see like, I'd be nosy sometimes and look at their GitHub commits and kind of see what they're doing. But I never understood it really. I was just like, it looks so simple, like the structure of it. But I know that if the back end developers are using it, it's got to be some complexity there. You know what I mean? So I was always interested in that language. I just never used it.
Yeah, definitely. Probably one of the easiest languages for me to learn was Golang.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because, like I said,
Easier than Angular?
oh yeah, English stuff. I'm still learning English to this day.
Okay. All right.
Angular, they always got those new versions coming out. Like right now, it's Angular 15. If I was to talk to you last year, it was Angular 11. And these new versions, you got to catch up and understand what's the new feature that you can take advantage of if needed.
Yeah.
What you might have to deprecate because there's certain things that they might drop because it's no longer providing you with the performance that's necessary for today's time.
Right.
But with Golang, I never really seen that much shift from version to version. Yeah, definitely one of the easiest. Like if you were to want to get more on the back end side, I would definitely say Golang. It's already part of the family that you're using, so
Yeah. All right. I might have to check out Golang now.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used it because I know I mentioned that I work for a startup, but I'm also building my own, right? So mine's just called influence.com,
Okay.
and the whole entire back end is Golang. And
Okay.
I use Docker, Kubernetes to get the CI/CD pipeline in place and the easy rollout. And the front end is all Angular. So
Yeah.
really, all of it is Google owned or Google made
Yeah.
programming language, except for the database. The database I use is MongoDB.
Good old MongoDB, man. Good old MongoDB.
Yeah,
Now, that's what's up, though. I've heard like all the frameworks you just mentioned. I really like Kubernetes. I remember they're using it at my old job. Docker, of course. And those are things that I was like, I told myself, you probably should learn these things, even if you don't want to be a developer in that. Like if I don't want a job in those direct technologies, if I was trying to build out an app, like you said, it would probably benefit me in the long run if I at least understood the components that it would take to make like a huge infrastructure for an app using all these technologies. So Golang, Kubernetes, Docker, all that, like it's on my bucket list. I've been too addicted to Flutter to like pick something else up. Like as soon as I kind of ease back from Flutter a little bit, I might go pick up something else. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to get tunnel vision with one language. I definitely want to kind of broaden my view a little bit. But yeah, those have definitely been on my bucket list for a little while.
yeah, man. Yeah. And the real reason why I decided to even learn anything outside of the front end development side was I'm like, okay, it was actually a point in time I was at work. I'm like, I'm tired of working. I got to work for myself. I can't do this for the rest of my life. One of those kind of moments. And I'm like, in order for me to work for myself, and I don't want to go like branch outside of my comfort zone, which is right now software development.
Yeah,
I gotta become a full stack developer.
yeah,
And the rate I was able to learn these new things was because the initiative that Verizon gave me. They gave me $8,000 a year to spend on either going back to school, $1,000 a year to spend on online courses.
yeah,
I definitely took advantage of all of that good stuff, and that's where I learned Docker, Kubernetes, Golang,
yeah.
MongoDB, all that good stuff.
That's dope. They gave you money to go back to school or learn something new.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like every job should do that. I know every job, they want you to be tied in with their mission, so they're not going to do that. But that's dope. I wouldn't expect Verizon to do that, but that's dope.
yeah. But there's always a catch.
What's the catch?
I think you already know the catch.
Get to pay it back?
You don't got kind of, sort of. So the
Right.
thing with these enterprise companies, they offer you these initiatives that sound really great, especially when you see them on paper.
Right.
But they fall within this idea of the golden handcuffs. So,
I don't know what that is. That sound bad, though.
oh yeah, the golden handcuffs is basically we're going to give you these, incentives, free gyms, free courses online. You go back to school, X, Y, and Z. However, if you go back to school within the first year of being here, but you decide to leave before three years ends, the money that you paid, well, we paid for you, you got to pay us back.
That's the catch right there.
Yeah, so that's the golden handcuffs idea. Like, even for when I went back to school, it was like, yeah, we could pay for everything, but if you decide to leave and continue school, you're on your own, kind of thing.
Okay. So you had to pay him back essentially then.
No, I made the 3 year.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's funny because they give you the 3 year cut when everything gets vested, bonuses, stock options, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And I left 3 years one day after.
You said, all right, I'm gonna get this 3 years in. I'm out.
Exactly. So I got my 3 years in. I did my job and was fully vested. Got 401k match, all that good stuff, and I bounced.
That's what's up. Hey man, use them, don't let them use you. You feel me?
Facts.
Yeah.
But that branches on to the middle part of the stand-up, which is what do we do as of today as a English developer, or what do we do as of today as a Flutter developer? What's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. So I work for ADP right now. I'm a Flutter developer for them. And since I work for them, I can't go too much into detail about what I do, but I work on their mobile application. So a lot of my day is spent working for their product. But as you know, I do my YouTube channel where I'm talking about Flutter and Firebase as well. So after I leave, the 9 to 5 environment, I go to the library and I'm already working on like my next video concept. I might spend like 2 or 3 hours in the library just jotting down ideas or looking at videos or reading articles about different things that Flutter's doing, and then how can I make my own version of that and then explain that to an audience. So if I'm not doing that, then I'm probably either working on like a game in Flutter or working on my own app in Flutter as well. So I try to spend at least 3 hours. Let me not say 3. That's kind of excessive. At least 2 hours a day working on my own craft. That way I don't feel like I'm just burning myself out for someone else's mission and not my own. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of what my day as far as the work looks like. And then I always have this idea that whatever I'm working on, I try to just work on one big task a day. That way I don't burn myself out, because me being a developer, I'd be in the library until like midnight trying to just overdo an app. And it's just like, I got like, what's the term? I think perfection analysis or perfection something, but where I just want something to be perfect, that I'll just stay longer amounts of time until I know that it's where I need it to be. But I was burning myself out too quick. It got to a point where I was like, I don't even want to develop anymore. So I kind of took a step back and was like, all right, let me just focus on one task for whatever I'm working on. So that might be me going to the library and watch one video on Flutter, and then the next day write the outline for your video, then the next day actually record the video, then the next day upload it, that process. So I kind of relax a little bit more, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how like my days go as far as the work.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And we definitely gonna plug your YouTube channel. I'm a subscriber, so hopefully whoever's watching currently and after this video is out, make sure to subscribe. The content is legit. There was that one YouTube video. You out of the country. Where were you at?
Oh yeah. I was in Cancun, for my 30th birthday. And so I kind of wanted to do like a recap of like where I started at to different jobs that I had in tech, and to kind of like where I'm at now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. Okay. All right. So you got 2 years. Once you hit 30, it's kind of like, you're like, man, that's the age where it's just like, you're young enough to still do what you want, but old enough to have the wisdom to make the right decisions. You know what I'm saying? And so that it kind of just came full circle for me as far as like how serious I want to get with this tech stuff. Like, it's not a game no more. It's like, I want to make this a passion. Like, I want it to be a brand. I want people to know, like, Trey Coles is serious about his craft. Like, when you see me, you know that I represent something related to what I'm working on. And so that's kind of like what prompted me to do that video to begin with.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the video, man. I watched it from start to finish, and you were definitely dropping gems. I think when I was watching it, I was laying in the couch, just watching YouTube. And after I was done with your video, I'm like, let me get my ass up and go do some shit. Let me get some
Yeah,
yeah, just being lazy. But yeah, that was actually a pretty cool video.
appreciate it.
But yeah, what you described on your day to day as of today as a Flutter developer was a lot, right? I think a lot of people who's watching would be like, dang, you do your 9 to 5, then post work, you go to the library, you put that hours in for a YouTube video and just learning more content and becoming better at your craft. What would you say is like the secret sauce for that kind of work ethic? Is there like a certain schedule that you always and must follow, or what's your secret sauce?
Um, Man, that's a good question. I've been doing it so long, I don't even know if it's like a secret sauce now. It just feels natural. But I would say make sure you're having fun while doing it.
Mm,
A lot of times we pick up tasks or hobbies because it's the cool thing to do. It's the cool thing to be grinding, so to speak, and working hard. And look at me, I got this business. Look at me, I'm working on this. Look at me, I'm working. But a lot of people don't truly have fun with what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And that my mom taught me at an early age, like you don't want to wake up and do something that you don't like. You don't want to wake up and go somewhere to get paid doing something that you don't love doing, you know?
mm,
So in my mind, I always try to make the stuff that I'm talking about fun. Like in my videos, my most recent YouTube video, I made a video game in Flutter. And so whether I did a video on that or not, that was actually interesting enough and fun for me to where it was like, it didn't really feel like work, you know? It was just me being in my element, and I was just having fun, essentially, you know? And so as long as you're having fun doing what you do, it no longer feels like a process that's strenuous. It more so just becomes a lifestyle, and you start to become in love with the journey more so than the destination if you do it that way. So that would be, if I had to say what the secret sauce is just having fun doing what you're doing.
yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. And then when I hear you say that, I go 5 years back in my career, it was kind of branching off and starting. If I was to hear you say that, I'm like, how in the hell am I having fun if I don't know what I'm doing? When you're that intern and you're kind of confused and you got that pressure and you understand you got to get shit done, or if you're
Right,
a junior developer and you got these tasks and you just like, I learned the basics, I don't know the core.
right,
And then all of that, thinking, and then you kind of get lost in your thoughts and you start to think, is this even really what I want to do?
right.
But I think what you kind of describe as your day to day, just creating repetition, learning, and then you start to make this stuff that was once upon a time complex become simple, and then the simple later becomes fun. So it's
Yeah,
one of those things you got to kind of force yourself down, sit down, do the studying, and before you know it, you know all things Flutter in your case, so you know all things Angular, and you kind of find some enjoyment out of it, and enjoyment creates those different projects that you might want to do or content that you might want to create.
exactly. And everything you're saying is 100% accurate. I'm gonna also add that when you make it fun, like I'll say this, like my past 3 jobs, I've been a Flutter developer, and on my resume, there isn't much Flutter talk, but the jobs that I had, they saw like my YouTube and was like, oh, he knows Flutter. Let's reach out to him. So just by me having fun with Flutter, I now get employment opportunities. I now am able to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Like just because it was fun to me. It wasn't like I picked up Flutter like, man, I want to be on Standup. You know what I'm saying? Or I picked up Flutter like I want to get this job. It was like, no, that's a new framework. I've never used it. It looks fun. Let me enjoy it. And then from there, the opportunities came to me. You know what I'm saying? So when you make it fun, everything else follows. You know what I'm saying? Don't chase it because it's the money or the glitz and glam. Actually have fun with it, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I love that. Yeah, definitely finding that niche, finding enjoyment, and
Yeah.
then the last part, let's be honest, is the difficult part, which is be comfortable putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Be comfortable exposing your personality, the way that you might speak or describe certain things within the tech space. Once you do that, I think you kind of like break down that wall. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people, especially with developers that I've seen, they don't really like that last part where it's kind of putting yourself out there, being vulnerable. You know, if it's creating content or if it's describing and teaching, doing
Yeah.
that is a big deal because people love that, they admire it. When you describe things, that also kind of means that you're also a good teacher at the same time. So
Yeah. And it's hard for a lot of people, especially in like software development, because like by default, most software developers, they're spending 8 hours behind a desk all day. So a lot of them don't have like the most social skills. You know what I mean? They're not put in situations where they have to communicate with people on the daily. So by default, it can be a little intimidating to get in front of a camera and talk about whatever you're learning, you know? But it's so rewarding once you do that because it's like if you can talk about your craft, then it's like, all right, you really know what you're doing now. It's not just trying to memorize concepts and apply them to a job. It's like, oh, he knows what he's talking about, and he's serious about his craft. He can speak so eloquently about whatever he's learning. You know what I mean? And from there, it just like I said, it's rewarding once you're able to comfortably talk about whatever you love or your passion is. So yeah, but like I said, a lot of developers off rip, they're just like a little awkward, a little shy. You know what I'm saying? But I think we can change that. You know what I'm saying? Like even just having this talk right now, it can show another side of tech where, like you said earlier, we're not as robotic, so to speak. We're just human beings, you know, day to day. We do the same things as other people. We just happen to be in the tech field.
yeah, yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, whenever I see people like my day to day, like I mentioned, I'm at the gym often, or if it's just me hooping, and I tell them what I do, they surprised because they wouldn't expect somebody like myself in my demeanor and somebody who enjoys speaking to others and kind of coaching in a sense to
Yeah,
also want to be in software development.
exactly.
And if you guys really got to check out his channel because that's exactly who he is. You get a little piece of his personality as well as his expertise in Flutter. Um,
Yeah, man. Check me out. Trey Codes on YouTube, man.
wow. All right. So that was a clip. That was a clip. That's what the pause was.
Yeah, real simple, real simple. Trey Codes, that's it. You can find me anywhere. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Trey Codes. I'm out there.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned TikTok. So let's get into that part too, because I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Okay.
Where do you, and this, I don't know, I don't think it's too political, but where do you see like the U.S. adopting TikTok, it being owned by ByteDance, and there's this whole idea that TikTok is specifically creating algorithms to kind of mess the minds up of kids and consumers in these states. I know the question is totally left field.
No, it's a great question because I've seen videos on this topic before as well. I saw like a video that was talking about how there's a US version of TikTok and then there's a Chinese version of TikTok. And the contrast is kind of startling because in China and TikTok, the algorithms are teaching kids to like astronomy and mathematics. And then the US TikTok is twerk videos and rap and drugs and like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's almost like the US version is trying to dumb down society because TikTok is already a very addictive app. Short video content is like the new wave. Just scroll, see another 30-second video, scroll, see another one. So you can really get stuck on it. And if your mind is just getting filled with the same repetitive things that aren't progressive, it could turn people into zombies essentially. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that it is kind of scary as far as like where it's headed. But I use TikTok like every day and I just try to like if some pops like if it's a twerk video, right? I try to scroll right past it. I'm human, so it's like it might be hard some days, right? I try my best to scroll past it because I know that TikTok is like, oh, he spent a whole 30 seconds on this. Let's feed it to him again. You know what I mean? And so now like my algorithms are kind of showing me more motivational related things, different things on books that you can read, tech related videos and stuff like that. So I try to hone the algorithms in to benefit me because if you're on there just scrolling aimlessly at things that entertain you, it could turn you into a zombie. So yeah, that's how I feel. Like, what do you think about it though?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a sense of biasness with how the app works in China versus how it does in the States, as well as the amount of time that the app can work. So what I mean by that is for those in China, you can only utilize TikTok no matter how beneficial it might be for them, learning new things, mathematics, different languages, astronomy. You can only learn things for 2 hours, and then the app stops working.
Really?
Yeah, but in
Wow.
the States, you can be on there for hours,
Hours.
just scrolling.
Yeah. And you get trapped, literally. Like, there's sometimes I'm on TikTok and I'm like, I'm gonna just watch 5 videos. And then like a whole hour go by and I'm like, dang, bro, I didn't do nothing this past. I just wasted an hour looking at some pointless stuff.
Yeah,
But I didn't know that they had a time limit in China like that. That's crazy.
yeah, they got a time limit. They try to, I don't know if they try to force folks to get out and be more active, or just to not put too much attention to the app itself.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, I think they make a lot more money in the States off the app versus they might in China. So,
Man, that's crazy. That's that question wasn't too political. It's been on my mind for a while now. Because my homie had sent me a video showing me the different TikToks, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, they trying to do something. I don't know what they up to, but that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Man, I don't know how much longer TikTok has. It might be around for a while. I don't know, but I feel like so many other platforms are trying to take their secret sauce now. You got YouTube Shorts. Instagram is trying to do the same thing with their short reels and stuff like that. So it may be around for a while. I don't know, but the competition is starting to get a little heavy as far as like short video content.
yeah, last quarter, YouTube Shorts actually generated more revenue than TikTok did. So it's
Already.
fully catching up, that's for sure. And depending on like how the political space goes 2024 and beyond, if they decide to like just totally deprecate the use of TikTok in the States, that's going to change a lot. So
Yeah, we're gonna see, man. Just give it some time.
yeah. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask also, so you worked for a few employers. Were any of them startups at all, or all like larger companies?
Yeah, so I've only worked for one startup. My last job that I worked for was a startup. It was a company called FloatMe, and they specialized in payday loans. So let's say that your next check is coming 4 days from now. Instead of waiting for them 4 days to come, you can
May I
get.
have your attention, please? The library will remain open for another 30 minutes. If you're
I got
under the
30
age of
minutes.
13 and need to call for a ride,
My bad, bro.
please
Hold
do
on.
so at this time. Library computers will begin shutting down in 20 minutes. If you're over the age of 18, you're eligible to
They
use
really
the
cut you
library's
off like that on my video,
which
man.
are available until 10 p.m. this evening. Please see staff for more information about open access. Thank you.
All right.
I thought that was the TikTok guys. Like, you better
You
stop
thought
talking about
it. Nah, my bad. But so yeah, my last job, it was a startup. And so it was called FlowMe. And that was the first time I ever worked for a startup. But I actually enjoyed it though. It was the fact that it was a startup, it wasn't as structure based to where it's like it wasn't as rigid as some companies are. Like, when you get into big companies, they have a set way of how they do things, and you're more so just a cog in the wheel at that point. But with them, they were extremely flexible. People were very personable. There was a lot of room for growth. So I really enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like I really don't have any complaints when it comes to that. But that's the only time I ever worked for a startup.
Yeah. I was wondering because I went from large 30,000 employees to 600. When I first joined, it was 300 to now 25.
Yeah.
It seemed to be that you went from probably a smaller size company to a larger one. Was there any reason for you to go from startup to enterprise?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, so me working at ADP now, this was like the biggest company I've ever worked for as far as like enterprise level. And I've always wanted to work for like a bigger company just to kind of see what it was like to get into these rooms with these people and work on an application that I know other people have in their phone already. Like it's different when like you're working on an app that a select group of people have, and then an app that almost everybody is using. It's a different type of feeling you get. And I just wanted to kind of experience that. I wanted to see what it's like to be a part of something that everybody was using. So it was it was really just me kind of want to just, push the boundaries and jump into something that I haven't been a part of in my development career ever, And so I think it was just a good transition and a good fit for me. And it's been solid. Like I said, the Float Me was good for what it was, you know what I'm saying? And I still love them to this day for even giving me an opportunity to work for them. And I still communicate with a lot of the people there. But I wanted to go to that next level in my career. Like before it was all said and done, I wanted to say I worked for a big company, And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't try for Google like 5 times. They never gave me, they never let me in. So I was like, all right, man, forget Google, bro. They just ain't rocking with me. So, I think ADP was just like, that's the perfect mix for me. It's like, it's enterprise enough, but it's not too enterprise where it's just like, all right, I don't have no say so in anything. You know what I mean? But yeah, ADP, it's a solid job though. I like it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever are interested in Google, I got a connect in Google. She's a recruiter. She will literally give you the full outline of what to expect during the process. So I'm sorry he's treating you good, but if you want to go to Google, you got that.
All right. Well, look, ADP might be watching, so I'm gonna just stay with ADP right now. I love ADP.
But yeah, no, I actually think going from startup to enterprise is mad interesting. For me personally, I went from enterprise to startup. It was Series C at the time to seed round. And for those that might not be familiar with like the different sectors of startup, there's like the pre-seed, which is basically, please, mom, pop, cousins, give us some money so we can kind of start something. The seed stage where you might have like angel investors, people who are, accredited investors making $200,000 a year, have $1 million in net worth that invest into your company. That's that seed stage. Series A is when you're raising a lot more money from VCs, C, D, E, F to exit, whatever the case is. So I joined my first startup. It was called Degreed. It's an educational platform for enterprise customers. I was with them for a year, and the reason why I decided to leave was I realized how much my stock options at a Series C was really worth. When I joined the startup, I assumed that Series C stock options, my equity, could probably change my life from, 0 to 100.
Yeah.
But when I seen my first vested year, my first stock options, and I looked at it, I'm like, okay, this is going from 0 to 2. This ain't doing enough, right? So I decided to kind of go to a smaller startup that had a lot more potential and offer a larger sum of equity. And we're at the seed stage as we hopefully grow and raise more capital. When the capital gets used as intended and the valuation increases, I think hopefully it does go from 0 to 100 in that case. But
got it. That makes sense. Yeah, man. If it's like, I always say, like, if you feel like, even if you like a job, like, it's gonna sound bad. Well, it's not gonna sound bad. Just really make sure that you are getting what you want out of that job. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times people take jobs and they don't ask for any type of benefits. They don't ask about stock options. They don't negotiate salaries. They're just like, I just want to work. And it's just like you missing out on a lot of potential benefits of things that can change, not just you, but, everyone that benefits from you, your whole family. You know what I'm saying? By just asking the right questions and actually demanding what you want from these jobs. So I'm just a big advocate for really ask for what you want. Like, speak up, because within tech, it's a lot of money. Like, and they're dying to give it out, but only if you ask for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And that leads to this question for you. So negotiations with regard to, obtaining that position that you're looking for. How easy is it to negotiate a salary, a package from a company as a junior developer versus negotiating for that salary or package from a company as a senior developer?
Well, I think the difficulty, I don't really think it's difficult, like it's more difficult for one or the other. I think it's more just about, are you confident in it? Because a negotiation essentially is just all they can do is say no. You know what I mean? So the difficulty really isn't different. It's just at a senior level, you might be more comfortable to ask for that extra amount of money. You know what I mean? Like once you're in that senior position, you might be like, okay, I want this type of raise, or I want these type of benefits. As a junior, you could probably still get those benefits, but you might shy away from asking that question because you feel like I'm not that guy just yet. You know what I mean? But there's people that just come in off of, you know, they're literally entry level engineers, but they know how to negotiate well enough to get what they want. So I would say the difficulty isn't really there. It's just, do you have the confidence in your field and your position in that job to ask for what you truly want?
Mm. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that answer.
Yeah, man.
But
I
that's
mean,
the answer right there, low key. That is the answer.
because I mean, like when I first started coding, like I was entry level at like my first job, and you know, I didn't negotiate anything. I was like, oh, I got a job out of college, you know, and then I get there, and I'm like, oh, like I didn't know what anyone else's salary was, but the projects we were working on were like $1 million projects. So I'm just like, I probably could have asked for a little more. You know what I mean? Like just, you know what I'm saying? Just simple mathematics. If I'm working on a project that's $1 million project and I'm getting this type of payment, I don't think it would have bothered them to ask for, you know, a couple extra thousand or something like that. You know, I didn't think to ask. I didn't feel like I was that guy to even ask for that just yet, but I probably could have, you know. So
Yeah, and now you're him.
hey, hey man, one day I'm still working. I'm getting there. I ain't there yet.
Yeah. No, that's actually some really good advice right there. And I know we have a few folks still on live. If you guys had any questions at all, if you guys wanted to hop on, let's say that you guys can hop on like the next 10 minutes. If you guys had any questions for either one of us, you know, feel free to do so.
Just a heads up, there's about 20 minutes left in the library.
Ready? All right, cool.
Yeah.
And we can work with that. Yeah, so we talked about the before, you know, you mentioned how your mom and it was a huge inspiration to your journey as a developer, and your dad's work ethic, you know, also helped with that a lot. You know, and then that kind of helped you get into the tech space. You know, we talked about the current, you know, you are a Flutter developer, worked for a few companies. I think this might be your third or fourth one. But either or, as you're working full time, you're also building out your content on YouTube, as well as understanding a little bit more about Flutter and perfecting your expertise. Let's talk about the blockers, right? So what are the things that you face as a blocker, as a developer in this space? You know, it doesn't have to be technical, but what are the blockers that you face, and how do you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of the blockers that I face, well, I would say one of them is, and I'm getting better at it, but just really getting comfortable, like, how do I say it? Just really being comfortable being that guy talking about whatever he's talking about. Like, when I first started my YouTube channel, I didn't have any type of structure to the videos. It was literally just me coding in front of my computer, and I just hit like record. There was no structure, you know what I mean? But now that people are really watching me, I take it way more serious now, because I don't want to be that guy that's just talking and act like you know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people do the whole fake it till you make it thing. You can't fake it in tech. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to know tech. Like, it's easy to spot someone that is just blabbing right now. So a blocker for me is just really kind of break that ceiling of feeling nervous, or feeling like I'm out of place, or feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, and starting to get that confidence to where it's like, no, yeah, this is accurate, and I feel comfortable telling you what I know about it. You know what I'm saying? Another blocker I say is just meeting people in this realm of tech that, you know, I can really relate to. You know, as we know, like, tech is not very minority dominated, so to speak. It's heavily dominated by white males, and then, yeah, I'll just say heavily dominated by white males. So when you get into these fields, it can be like, I don't belong here. You know what I'm saying? And trying to relate to other developers, it can be a little challenging. So another blocker would probably be trying to just find a community of people that are doing what you do and resemble you and relate to you. You know what I mean? So those would be two blockers for me. But every day I'm breaking through them, just one day at a time, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and appreciate you for sharing that. I know those wasn't technical, it was more personal. So, we appreciate you, getting into the personal side and sharing that. On my end, I would say a blocker on a day-to-day basis is something that I experience often. It's kind of similar. I don't create the content on YouTube, tutorials, but being able to speak up and have the confidence to do so at work, I think starting off as a junior developer, I definitely did not have that. It was more so, give me a task, and I'll go ahead and Stack Overflow it out and try to figure it out.
Hey man, I would not be here today without Stack Overflow. I'll say that.
But as soon as I became a lead developer and I later became senior, back to a lead developer, managing a team, I realized the importance and the need of me to speak up, not just for myself, but for the behalf of my other team.
Right.
People, not just myself, might not want to say how they feel, or they might want to take time off, but they don't want to let their manager know, things within that nature. So being able to have the confidence to speak up, say yes, say no, say this might take a week, it might take 2 weeks. I need this, that, and the third to get the job done. Just being able to have that confidence to do so rather than, hoping for somebody else to speak up. And second part, I definitely got to agree with you. I know I mentioned I worked for that startup. Degree, when I joined, we're at 300. We got funding that made us become a $1 billion startup. And we went from 300 to 600. What was crazy is, even though from 300 to 600 employees, there was only 8 Black people there.
Really?
Only 8.
That's a very alarming statistic. To double your employment rate, and there's only 8 Black people there.
Only 8, yeah. And it's one of those things where, okay, we're Black. I'm from Chicago. I don't know, you're from Ohio. A lot of other folks, they from different places, so we don't have the same, let's say, culture, upcoming. I'm a J. Cole fan, Kendrick. They might be listening to Taylor Swift. But being able to see somebody that looks like you and, might have some similarities with does mean a lot. So definitely being able to experience that within the tech space is something that I haven't seen. And it's kind of been a blocker because you don't know how open you can be with folks and, be more of yourself with other folks. And, I see that changing slowly, but not necessarily as quickly as it probably should be. And there's 2 people at fault. You can say to employers, you can
May I have your attention, please? The library will remain open for 15 minutes. Library computers will shut down in 5 minutes. If you need to print, make copies, or check out, please do so at this time. If you're under the age of 13 and need to call for a ride, please do so now. Thank you.
All right. You said you can blame the employers or who?
Yeah, so with the idea of not enough Black people in tech, we can definitely blame 2 people. We can blame the employers and say that, they're not doing enough to outreach and, obtain this talent from either HBCUs, whatever the case is, or we can begin to blame ourselves for not wanting to have that interest in development or tech in general. Because you don't got to code to be a software developer or to be in the tech space. You don't got to code. You can be a project manager, product owner, Scrum Master. There's so many different ways to get into it and still getting paid just about the same amount.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That second point, as far as who to blame, I keep saying advocate tonight for some reason, but I'm an advocate for a lot of stuff. But I'm an advocate for just putting the blame on me. Like if we're not actually applying for these roles, if we're not trying to learn computer science, if we're not going to the lab to put in the effort to compete with these, people who are not minorities, can we really blame them for not even looking our way? You know what I mean? Like a lot of these employers would say, well, there's not even enough, minority people trying to fill these roles. So all we're doing is pointing the finger at someone that they have no explanation why they're not picking us up. Yeah. Like we don't even see y'all. Y'all not trying. So I think that second point that you brought up is definitely true. Like if we at least started to apply ourselves in the way that, our counterparts are, and by counterparts, I mean white people, then I don't think we would have an issue. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we're like unicorns because we were the ones that actually, from our community, that actually stepped up and said, all right, I want to go against the status quo and learn something different and see how far I can get, So.
Yeah, no, exactly. You can't really put so much blame on somebody else if you're not putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
What you're doing with your content, on YouTube. You know, I know you're using it as a means of learning yourself, but you are also inspiring others. So I see a lot coming with it. Cool. We went with the past, the present. We talked about blockers. I know the TikTok guys. I was trying to put pause to it. So we have a few questions in here. We can go through the questions, and then we can have like a good couple minutes for y'all to hop on live if you want. So if you want to hop on live, send a request. Be fully clothed, and ask your question. So what you guys think about Chat GPT? I keep hearing about that, but I have no idea exactly what it is.
Hey man, look, that is funny. I've been hearing about that a lot, right? So I went hooping yesterday, right? And my homie Namdi, we met at Float Me essentially, right? So he's into tech. But essentially, like before we even started hooping, he just pulled out his phone and was like, "Hey, have you heard of Chat GPT?" And I'm like, "Nah, what is that?" And he literally, it's like, it's hard to explain, but just imagine machine learning on steroids. Like he literally just typed in, "Build me a Flutter app that has a spinning animation and stops within 3 seconds." And within like 5 seconds, the actual application started writing out Flutter code, and it was breaking it down and explaining every component to the Flutter code.
Wow.
But that's like the tip of the iceberg of it. It's like you can ask any question, like give me a nickname for 3 horses that don't have legs, and it might say tripod or stumpy. Like it's weird because it's a different type of machine learning that's applied to it. But to answer your question, I just heard about it yesterday, so I don't know too much about it. But when I went home and started looking at it, I was like, they have their own API as well. So I think that it can be very, very, very interesting how it can be used. Because even at work today, I was at work and I was stuck on like some Flutter code on like how to actually put it together. My coworker just typed in a question like, how would you wrap 2 widgets together on the same line? It wrote out the code for us, told us how to fix it, blase, blase. You know what I mean? So I think it's the future, man. Like it's only been out since last Thursday, but I found out that my coworker told me Twitter took like 5 years, or Twitter took a bunch of years to hit 5 million users or something like that. No, Twitter took 5 years to hit 1 million users, but Chat GPT already hit 1 million users, and it just came out last Thursday.
Wow.
Yeah, so that should put it in kind of like you can understand like how beneficial and how rampantly it's being used right now. But to answer a question, I think it's very cool concept, and I'm trying to learn more about it.
Yeah, I mean, and we can even break that out to another question that I have for you, right? Because you probably know more about it than I do. And some of the examples you gave was actually pretty, great examples for me to kind of understand it. But what's the space for software developers with Chat GPT becoming this huge thing that can code for you?
You know, it's funny. So like yesterday, I'd say prior to yesterday, I'd have been like, our jobs are gone. There's no need for us. Like, we're going to be out of work soon, because if there's AI that can make code already, then what do you need me for? But then my homie kind of broke it down to me and was like, you still need someone to understand this and be able to scale it in a way that the AI can't. You know what I mean? So I think that it may become more of a challenge for us to figure out what's next for us as humans in this realm. But I don't really see us ever having to worry about being wiped out, And like I said, this is just, my mind has changed within the past 24 hours, I could be completely wrong, but I think that with every new advancement of technology, we're essentially putting someone out of work, When Uber came, taxi drivers got put out of work. When Airbnb came, a lot of hotel workers got put out of work. So technology is constantly putting people out of work. It's just, do you have the mindset and the drive to shift positions as well to keep going with technology? You know what I mean? So I think we're still good. I don't think it'll be anything detrimental to what we're really trying to do for the long term. What you think?
So I can give you a real life example on my end. It's not related to Chat GPT, but it is related to how software does in fact put people out of work. So when I was working for my first enterprise company, we created this software that essentially saved us 40,000 hours a year on manual labor. So rather than us having to hire X amount of contractors to get the job done, we had machine learning to do so with a simple UI that I built out.
Yeah.
Fast forward a year and a half later, when the quarter and the annual revenue came out about how much money we were making and how much money we saved from operational costs, they later made the decision to let go of 2,000 plus people.
Man, jeez.
So when I hear about Chat GPT, coming into the space, being able to code for, a Flutter developer, Angular developer, I'm pretty sure, or just answering questions and not just answering it, but basically giving you the results and the step-by-steps on how to do it, I wouldn't be surprised if Chat GPT starts to slim down the workforce in all sectors. So
yeah, it could be. It's an amazing piece of software. I will say that, like, it's spitting out real Flutter code. Like, I'm kind of amazed by it.
and to do so quick, that's kind of wild too. You said a couple seconds. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, like stuff that you would have to search Google for like 10 minutes for, is doing in like 5 seconds. Fingers crossed we can keep our jobs, bro. I hope we keep working, man. I hope so. I'd be salty if ChatGPT is the reason I don't have a job no more.
Facts. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was a great question, man. I appreciate that question. If there's any other questions from folks, feel free to drop it in here while we have our eyes on the chat. If there's some things that you might have asked previously, I'm obviously not able to scroll up and find it, so just go ahead and repeat yourself. My man said fingers crossed. That's a fact.
Yeah, man. It's getting hard out here because it's like you got people, the whole concept of no code applications as well, where they're building apps without coding. It's like it's a little discouraging some days because it's like, dang, am I going to be out of a job for real? Like, I done put in all this time and effort, but it's becoming so simple that people are doing it without having to put in nearly half the time. So, but that's why I always feel like, the way to kind of bounce back is just keep learning something new. You just got to keep learning. Like, now I'm about to start learning about ChatGPT. My bad. I'm gonna start learning about that. Like, really understanding how that works. Maybe that could be to my benefit as well. Like, I'm not gonna sit back and just let that take over. Like, no,
May I have your attention, please?
Hey,
the library will close in 5 minutes.
You got 5.
Complete your final transactions at this time. Thank you.
I got 5 minutes. I feel like I'm in prison right now.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want them to turn the lights off on you, but, I appreciate the, coming on to stand up, answering the questions and just being open with us. I think a lot of people on the live currently and those that, were here previously learned a lot from you. And, once I clip this up, I'm gonna definitely make sure to have your channel name in there. And, people, you guys gotta stay tuned for what's going on. He's spitting a lot of gems for you guys. So.
I appreciate it. I want to let you know, Victor, I really sincerely appreciate you inviting me on here. Like, when you DM me and said, let's talk tech, it was like, I low-key been waiting for it because it's like, I've been watching you for a minute, you know what I'm saying? But I honestly didn't feel like, do I just ask to be a part of something like that? I was like, nah, let me just admire him from afar and watch his work. And, if it happens, it happens. So when you hit me up, I was like, oh yeah, I'm blessed. I'm grateful for that. Like, I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And I'm glad I was able to talk to you tonight about something that's, such a big factor in both of our lives. So you're doing great work, man. Keep going.
Appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that. And, you said you hoop. We both are under the Google family. You were Flutter, me with Angular. So if I ever make my way out there in Ohio, I'm going to make sure to link up with you and, we can get a little hoop session in and probably not go to the library because they got that TikTok god out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna kick us out within 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got much time. But yeah, we can definitely go. Sure.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And yeah, man, I try to reach out to as much folks to join the live, but it's not many folks that want to come out here and spit anything. Or we can just come here and just talk about anything tech related. I wanted to ask you about the Deion Sanders today because I see.
Hey man, all right. So look, we got just like 3 more minutes. I'm gonna be real. I think it's crazy how a black person can't make a decision for themselves without it coming off as oh, he done sold out, he anti-black, blase, blase. It's just like, bro, what am I supposed to be tied to my community? Like, we are tied to the same thing for the rest of our life. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did what he needed to do at JSU, put in time, set a precedence there. Now someone needs to pick up the torch and follow in his footsteps. It's not all on him. You don't put all that work on one individual.
Yep.
I feel like we always want to applaud our leaders, but then when they die or pass away, we just sit back and just like, well, we're stuck. No, what we're supposed to do is keep going, you know? Like, I don't want to get too deep, but like, even with like, you know, Nipsey Hussle passing away, it's like, we applauded the work he was doing in his community, and then he died, and we just like, dang, we lost a good one. No, someone needs to step up and keep going. That's what this is about. We got to keep the torch going. So I think it's messed up that they ostracized that man and talked about him and called him a sellout. But it just showed that you can't make everybody happy, you know?
Yeah.
So, but what you think about it?
No, I agree with you 1,000%. You cannot make everybody happy. That's a fact. They got to be willing to do it themselves. I mean, the construct that he came to the university, he completely did a 180. You know, he got a lot more eyes on it. I'm sure a lot of those players are going to make it to the league. You know, a lot more money coming to the university in general. I mean, what else exactly you want to do? You want to be there for, like the other coach? I think the other coach was there for what, 13 years? Or was it more?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, the other coach before him was there for like, I think 13 years. It's like the contract that he was offered, let's just clap for that contract. You know, 29.
Yeah. And it's like, it wasn't like he came to JSU like, I'm about to save this school. Like, no, that was the role he wanted to take on for that time. He wanted to coach at JSU. Yeah. There was nothing in there that said, you got to save these boys, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't the goal. So,
can't put much pressure on him. Same thing with the tech space. When companies like startups want to exit and go to like the public market, you know, public meaning IPO, stock out, and go into the stocks and all that good stuff. Don't be surprised if their CEO has to leave and they get a new CEO who has experience going to that next level. It's the same thing, you know, JSU. So, yeah, and I can get into it too. I just wanted to pick you.
Yeah, I wish we had more time, man. But it was great talking to you, bro, for real. Like, the questions was perfect, the conversation was perfect. I really appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this sometime later next year, 2023. We can make it happen. But like I said, I'm gonna keep in touch. That's for sure. And if I'm ever in Ohio,
have your attention, please.
The TikTok guys.
Hey, everybody in the comment section.
They call it library.
I'm coming right now. All right, man. I'm all at you, bro.
Out here. All right. Peace. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that stand up. I think we made it a little bit less than 2 hours. AI everywhere. So either or, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys got a lot of gems out of it. I always enjoy myself learning a lot about the different people within the deaf community. So hopefully you guys do the same thing. My man said, cancel TikTok. That's a fact. That's a fact. Hop on, bro. If you have any time, you're probably coding or something. But yeah, like I said, once again, I appreciate you guys for joining. Next, the next stand-up that we're gonna have, I'm gonna post it. I'm aiming for one next week. I was in talks with another developer that we have in the deaf community, so hopefully something pans out. But yeah, either or, peace.